Hello and welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller and we're finishing up the creation of cartoon landscapes here in Hexagon and View. The image that I showed you at the beginning that I created, I rendered this in View 6 Infinite, and this is what it looked like. And I'm going to go ahead and recreate this, or something that looks like this, here in View 6 Infinite. I'm not going to use View 7. I used that same scene, rendered that same scene in View 7, and this is a comparison of it. And I didn't want to spend the time and fiddle around with getting it to look exactly like my original one that I created in View 6. Notice the notice the lighting on the building. It's a little bit brighter here in View 6, and the artificial ambient setting that I adjusted in View 6 is what I really liked, because it illuminates the underneath part of the trees, but in View 7 that doesn't exist. So there are some notable atmospheric differences in the light settings in View 7, so I'm going to have to play around with that a little bit more and get more familiar with it. Everything else looks identical or nearly identical in View 7, but I like the way it looks in View 6, so I'm going to create our cartoon image in View 7 and bypass, I'm going to create it in View 6 and bypass View 7 for this series of tutorials. There is one, here is the texture that I created that I'm going to use for the trees, which I will make available for download when you view this video. So getting on to our landscape, I'm just going to create a very basic terrain, use a standard terrain here, bring it into my foreground, come up here to the terrain editor, and I want to reset my terrain, and I want to use this peak function here. Well, I don't want that. Essentially all I want is a nice round blob, and that's pretty good. So I'm going to come up here to my diffusive setting. Let me bring this in a little bit. I clicked on peak over here to get this shape, and that's what I want. Something like that. Now I'm going to use my diffusive setting, and I'm going to make sure my rock hardness is set all the way down to soft. And now I'm just going to smooth this whole thing out. Now I can use thermal and wind. Those will also help, but I want to stay away from alluvium, fluvial, dissolve, and glaciation. So that adds a nice, smooth, cartoonish, blobby look to it, so I'm going to hit OK to that. And for a texture, I'm going to use this standard grass material that comes with View and just make a few slight little changes to it, and you'll see it works perfectly for this. So here are my two materials. I'm going to double click on this one. First thing I want to do is eliminate the bump setting. Come over here to my color and alpha. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to click on this key color over here, which shows black, and I'm going to delete it. I don't want black in it. And I'm just going to slide this adjuster over and create more of a light green gradient. And that's fine. Now I'm going to come over here to scale, and I'm going to type in 100. Over in this material, I'm going to type in 100. Double click on it, eliminate my bump, set that to 0, and edit the color map on this one. And what I want to do is, I think I'm going to create a light yellow for this one. maybe a little faded, slightly desaturated. I'll have to play around and see what we come up with. Now I'm going to click on this key color here, which shows green, and I'm going to delete that. I don't need green in it. And these colors are very similar. Okay, let's try that. Let me do a fast render and see what we've got. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think what I'll do is just resize my terrain ever so slightly. Stretch it out a little bit and squash it down. I'm going to import some objects and I'll be right back. Alright, so here are my imported objects straight off of the desktop. First thing I want to do is select the leaves. Actually, I want to reset this material. And I'm going to come over here to mapped picture and navigate my way to where my bitmap image is. And no, that's not it. There we are. And I will take that texture and drag it down over onto the other tree that I've got in the background. Click on my trunk. I'm going to reset that. And I'm just going to add a bark material. And I like this one that I got over at Geekatplay. Now if I do a render, ideally everything is going to be nice and cartoony, but this bark is not going to look good because it's very realistic texture set in this creative cartoon world. So what I want to do is add a layer to it by clicking right there. And I'm just going to create a basic, use a basic color, in this case a nice brown color. And now what I'm going to do is adjust my alpha boost until the bark texture that I initially selected and added is almost gone. All I'm using it for is just the texture and really not for its color. So now if I render it, now I've got a nice brown texture color, probably a little bit too much texture, a little bit more than I want. I want more brown and less texture, less bump. There we go. Add a little bit of character to that brown color. And now I'll take that and drag it onto the trunk that's in the background. And now on to our house. I'm going to create a texture for this. I've got this really bright, almost cartoony brick wall material. I like that. Now I think what I may want to do is scale it down. I think it'll be a little bit too big. Alright, let's do a test render of that. I like that. I'm going to use that atmosphere preset that I'm going to include with this video tutorial. And you see in the preview immediately the nice results it gives. Now one last thing I want to do is I want to click on my terrain and I'm going to take this smooth blending strip and I'm going to move it all the way down to 0, maybe 1. Click OK to that, and let's do a render. By moving that slider down, it creates a much stronger border between these two colors that were assigned to our terrain. So this is now one of the things that took me a while, one, to learn, and two, to figure out and adjust, was using the ambient lighting setting, and so that the underneath part of the tree is illuminated. It adds a much more cartoony feel, and I still have shadows. If I didn't increase my artificial ambience setting and instead dropped my shadow setting down, the ambient light balance here, or if I reduced the shadow setting here in my sun, well, yeah, it would make this more visible, but I would lose my shadows, and I wanted these shadows here. So the artificial ambient setting gave me the ability to add some illumination under here without killing my shadows, and two, without adding additional lights or spotlights into the scene. So that's creating cartoon backgrounds here in View, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you can use it in your future renders. So thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name's Gary Miller. Have a good day.